Mini episode 1341 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Had night one been night two, I actually think we'd have felt better about this whole thing because it would have been our lasting memory. Night two being so god-awful relative to night one. Night one jacked up the expectations. But even after that, Jake, I was looking at it like, I think night two is going to be what I expect it to be, which is not much. And that's exactly how it played out. I didn't know, none of us did, how they were going to try and tackle this crap in the first match. The straight-up wrestling match, catch as catch can, between Randy Orton and The Fiend after a blood feud where one man allegedly got burned to death, with Alexa Bliss and a box-like device, as I think, Byron Saxton called it? Yeah, Byron Saxton referred to that, and that, again...
No, it was a box-like structure.
Box-like structure, yes. Yes.
Yes. Otherwise known as a box.
Yes. And, but that's typical WWE. Why say in one word what you could say in three or four? But this match, and then it ends with the distraction finish with the motor oil apparently pouring out of the head of Alexa Bliss. And that was, you might want to get that oil changed, by the way, because that oil was looking to be pretty dark there. A lot of road grease in there. But for whatever this was, and apparently they're going to do a turn, nothing like doing a thing where somebody turns on whoever they're associated with. But we're in the era where there are no intergender matches, so it's not like they can pay it off in the ring. By the way, it's not like Alexa Bliss would be somebody you could pay off against The Fiend. Nia Jax maybe, but not Alexa Bliss. So as far as what the payoff is going to be for this, who the F knows? I don't even think they were thinking about that. All we know is that the guy who got to stand tall in the end is the one who tried to commit murder by burning the other one to a crisp, and isn't that a feel-good moment for the kiddies?
Okay, this entire thing, first of all, I'm going to take things back a little bit on this new comparison to the only other long-term epic storyline I can think of that comes close to this is Kane and The Undertaker. I was there at WrestleMania 20, okay? Or, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the one, not WrestleMania 20, I'm going to go back to the one prior to that in 1998 at the Royal Rumble. Kane put The Undertaker in a casket and he lit him on fire,
yep.
Right? The Undertaker came back at Monday Night Raw in Cleveland. No one questioned it. Went on to WrestleMania, defeats his brother, whatever. Okay. Now I'm going to fast forward again to a similar storyline of now at WrestleMania 20. Now just imagine when the Undertaker makes his triumphant return as the Dead Man at WrestleMania 20. If he gets in the ring and he's got Kane set up for the tombstone, everything goes the same except he looks over to Paul Bearer has grape juice coming out of his head, or motor oil, whatever it was. And it's coming out of his head, and he just drops him and goes, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And then Kane just chokes him and pins him, and then Undertaker just sits back up and looks, and then all of a sudden Paul Bearer's like, "Ha ha ha," and laughs and disappears. That's what we got here. And I hate to do this, but a funny story on this. So my better half is a huge fan of The Fiend and Alexa Bliss, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
So when she posted on Facebook all excited, waiting all this time for him to come back, and he comes back, and mind you, this is the same guy who got hit with got his head bashed in by a mallet, got hit with 37 stomps from Seth Rollins, was lit on fire, was God only knows whatever else happened to him. Maybe, just maybe, Rick, we have underestimated the three most dangerous letters in all of sports entertainment, VKM.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why this match ended the way it did was so Vince could throw his, you didn't see that happening, and I'll get you. No, because it doesn't make any damn sense.
Yeah.
This match should have been, I I can even buy into the Fiend resurrecting in his own form. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, whatever. It's, again, The Undertaker died and lit people on fire and rose to the heavens and all that stupid crap. Whatever. It's been a staple in WWE. I'm not that. What gets me is stupid booking, where it's like this match, as I told you before, should have been 10 minutes with intros out. Goes in there, everything Randy Orton tries, he hits the RKO, Fiend just stands right back up, gullets him, done, the end. Perfect storytelling, Randy Orton can go away, but no, instead we get this horse crap that is like, they're never going to see it coming. Like, yeah, we're never going to see it coming because it doesn't make any damn sense.
Right.
You built this thing all the way up to this point to go, nope, screw you, which you would later find out is going to be the theme of night 2. But, and we should have known it right off the bat when he started with this and go, like, this doesn't make any damn sense. Like, again, it goes back to the tag team turmoil match with women. You just wasted all of our time. Like, because God knows Randy Orton needed elevated in that situation.
Yeah.
The 15-time champion who has not had the time off during the entire pandemic, who's been there the entire time during the Thunderdome era. It's like, yeah, because he needed that victory. It's like, and every time, I don't know how they can really, like, I'll put it this way. I told you that our buddies and friends of the show, Adam and Church, were at the show live.
Yeah.
Adam texted me. He goes, I can't believe I just saw that. He texted me from the show and said, I can't believe I just witnessed the death of the Fiend alive. Dead.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Like, coming from people that were at the show. He's buried. Done. What do you do with him? You're going to do some Firefly Funhouse things. It's hilarious because it was the exact same problem that was before where he was the Eater of Worlds, where he talked all this game and everyone loved his promos, and then he just lost.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. He just dresses up like a silly clown now instead of some swamp cult leader.
Yeah.
You do all this build up, and then he's supposed to be this unbeatable thing, but he can't beat Goldberg and he can't beat Randy Orton. Give me a break.
Yeah. I'm going to co-sign everything you said right there, and it was just the entire thing. As far as the Russo-esque nature of the swerve, brother, they'll never see it coming. Not since Canyon helped Mike Awesome after he tried to murder him in the rafters in Kansas City in 2000 WCW. By the way, such great taste by WCW to try to reenact the Owen Hart real-life tragedy in Kansas City. But anyways, the whole thing of like, they'll never see it coming. This was Russo-esque booking at its finest. I hope he got a royalty check for this one. And it served no purpose. And again, where they're going to go from here, who knows and who cares?
And the crowd was clearly behind the Fiend.
Yeah.
They were into his shtick.
Yeah.
Like I said, my girlfriend who can take her leave post wrestling, she doesn't give a crap about a 4.5-star Seth Rollins v Cesaro match. That doesn't mean anything to her. But a Firefly Funhouse gives Alexa Bliss to the Fiend. Yeah, she finds that entertaining because she's into the character.
Yeah.
And there are people out there, not everyone are smart marks like us that are like, what a great match or anything like that. They just like to see what entertains them. It's the reason why Hulk Hogan was over for so long. And it only takes so long of when people get behind something, and Vince, for the sake of his ego, is the only thing at this point I can really think of. It isn't to draw money, clearly. He doesn't need to draw money because, well, number one, he doesn't know how to draw money anymore. He just pretty much gets his money from billions of dollars from networks and whatnot. Because obviously, stuff like this, it's just imagine any other line of work where the audience was telling you, like, hey, we're totally behind this, and the people in charge went, oh, you're behind this? Screw you for liking this.
Yeah.
Like, this is I actually, I'm going to use her as an example again. She just shared a thing on her Facebook. She's like, what the? Like, he came back for all that and lost, and I just posted the gift of Vince McMahon laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. It's your first time, huh? Welcome to my life.
Yeah, that's what it is. And
I'm sorry. I wanted the meme of, what's his face, James Franco being hung. First time, huh?
yeah. Well, again, at this stage of his life, and this has been the case probably for close to 20 years now, Vince couldn't draw money if you gave him green construction paper and magic markers. So this is just proving it yet again. And so Randy Orton goes over. Who knows? Who cares? They tried to salvage this on Monday night, but whatever.
I can't wait for that 16-time champion Randy Orton reign to happen here soon.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't know what I'm looking forward to less, that or 16-time women's champion Charlotte Flair. But
that's going to happen next week.
Yeah, more about that later. Speaking of women, we're going to blessedly skip over this tag team match because we jumped on a grenade by talking about it before. So Nia and Shayna go over. Enough said. Next up, I gave this one 3.5 stars. I thought it was really good. Fight forever, baby. Kevin Owens defeating Sami Zayn with Logan Paul. You have the shenanigans afterwards. Logan Paul shoves Sami Zayn, takes a stunner from Owens. As I said, search it out on YouTube. The all-time classic Sami Zayn post-match promo. A great storyline, and again, for as much garbage as they're doing in this company, and Kevin Owens was just sort of here, right? It was just a thing of like, oh, hey, he's got a long history with Sami. He's doing nothing for WrestleMania. Let's retrofit him into this. And it worked for these purposes. But it is Sami Zayn's character and storyline that carried this entire match/feud and will going forward. What they're doing with Sami in a company that is creatively bankrupt, as I said, this is one of the 2 or 3 things in the entire company that is just really awesome right now.
Yeah, we talked in depth on the preview show about how much we were into the Sami Zayn character and what they're doing with him, and I agree with you. And I thought this was the second best match of all of WrestleMania. This is the best match of night 2, in my opinion. I thought this is the second best match behind the aforementioned SmackDown Women's Championship match. It was because these guys have done this so many times that they could probably go in there and be like blindfolded and still sleep their way through a 3.5-star match. They have so much experience doing it, and that fact that it was at WrestleMania, they brought their A game. The right guy won, and then everybody got the moment where you knew it was going to happen, and he's standing there and he's waiting on it, and then Logan Paul's like, "Yeah, I like you," and the crowd's like, "Screw this Logan Paul guy," and Logan Paul sold the stunner like $1 million, and everybody was happy, and it was one of those yay wrestling moments.
Well, not only that, it's one of these things where I know we talked about this on the WrestleMania preview, that the test of how great Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn really are is that this feud now takes this fresh incarnation of Kevin Owens as the babyface, Sami Zayn as the heel. I mean, they've flipped this thing on a dime from the version of this that we were used to seeing, and it works just as well either way. It doesn't matter who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. They have incredible chemistry. They made it happen. It was awesome. Chemistry is something we won't be talking about as much when it comes to the next match, the U.S. title match. Sheamus defeating Riddle for the U.S. Championship. Don't call him Matt Riddle in 10:50. A match that was just there for me. I thought the wrong guy went over. I'm not a Sheamus guy, unlike you. I just think he's incredibly stale. I don't think there's any kind of future with him. With Riddle, there could be. But, I mean, for Sheamus to be holding one of their titles, even if it's a mid-card title in the year 2021, I don't care. I just really don't. And, again, it shows you what they think of Riddle. He's a young guy who could get over on his own. But much like his spiritual forefather, Rob Van Dam, if you get over with the crowd on your own, this is the treatment that you end up getting.
And speaking of Rob Van Dam, it was one of the things that I never thought in my life I would see, especially after the whole Ironton, Ohio thing. Rob Van Dam handing out RPG rolling papers at WrestleMania.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, how things have totally changed. And I'm like, I was in the backstage promo, and I'm like, I think Keith was like, is that his dad? I'm like, it could be. I'm like, it's not his dad, but it could be his dad. That'd be Riddle and Rob Van Dam, of course. On the topic of this match, I liked the finish. I thought that was original, and the fact that he actually kicked him in the face made it even better for me. I thought that was original, so I liked that. I didn't really have a horse in the race, but I found 2 things interesting coming out of this that I had read about. Number one, which I shared this, the Tennessee Titans congratulating Sheamus on his United States Championship victory, not mentioning anything about WrestleMania. I went on their page, on their Facebook page. Nothing before WrestleMania about WrestleMania, nothing after WrestleMania about WrestleMania. Just congratulations, Sheamus, on winning the United States title. And I'm like, that was made me take me aback. I was like, I was completely unaware that the Tennessee Titans were such huge Sheamus fans.
Yes.
But apparently that's a thing. Did not know this. Apparently maybe he lives in Nashville is something that I heard is a reason why. I always thought he lived in Tampa, but then again, I think every pro wrestler on the planet lives in Tampa.
Right.
So, shame on me for thinking that. And then the other thing, and this is a funny story, I don't know if you heard about this. So I guess the reason Sheamus got the championship is because Riddle was never supposed to get the
I did hear that.
The
That
title
makes
in the
sense.
first place was supposed to go to Keith Lee, but Keith Lee got sick or got injured or something happened, so Johnny Drip Drip had to take his spot in the triple threat match, but they still had to get the title off of Lashley because they wanted Lashley to go on to face Drew. So instead of Keith Lee winning the title by pinning Riddle, which was the original plan, they had Riddle win because they knew Johnny Drip Drip was going to be involved in the Bad Bunny thing. So their way of rectifying it was going, okay, well, we put it on him, but we never wanted him to be the champion in the first place. So I guess we're going to get Sheamus holding the title until Keith Lee gets back and they can rectify their story that they were going for here. He only really, when it comes to, I mean, it makes sense in hindsight looking at it, but so pretty much, yeah, Matt Riddle was just a placeholder champion, and it's another guy where they don't know what to do with him. I mean, they don't ever they present him as he's like this stoner hippie guy, like not a legit badass from the UFC that has a pretty stellar MMA record that could actually kick your butt. They never mention that stuff, but Sheamus, tougher than tough. They make sure you can definitely tell night 2 who their boys were.
Well,
who
yeah.
their guys are.
Yeah. Well, and when you're mentioning all the calamitous verbs that may or may not have happened to Keith Lee, I think you forgot one. Depushed. That one's in there potentially as well in that stack. But this match again, I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I must have been feeling generous. I wasn't feeling as generous watching this next one. The Nigerian drum fight for the other mid-card title, the Intercontinental Championship. Apollo Crews defeating Big E, and in a match where, again, it looked like Big E was just going to roll over him for the millionth time. So it's basically the worst of both worlds here, because you make it look like Apollo Crews was going to eat his approximately 2,000th loss in a row to Big E, even with the change in gimmick, only to have him be saved by an outside guy, which I'm given to understand is the repackaged Dabba-Kato of Raw Underground's past, I believe. So
yeah, and the announcers had no idea who he was, which was really funny because they must have said his name 700 times on Raw, especially Michael Cole. Who is this guy? I'm like, it's Dabba-Kato.
Yeah.
Or as Keita said, it's some giant who raided a thrift store and could only find an old band costume and an army jacket.
Yeah, I mean,
pants on and a used army jacket. I'm like, oh god, this guy's horrible.
I mean, I was having flashbacks to the Jackal's Truth Commission, which I'm guessing is not what they were going for, but nevertheless. I mean, again, the worst of both worlds. Again, I had to be feeling generous to even give this 2 2/4 star or 2 1/4 stars. It just, again, there had to be a way for Apollo Crews to go over that made him look like slightly less of a geek, but they apparently didn't have any interest in doing that. More important to protect the guy who's losing than the guy who's winning, and more about Big E losing when we get to the main event, because he's a guy who had been mentioned potentially for a main event spot at this WrestleMania. But yeah, you and I were not much enamored of this. This next match,
hang on, I did have something going into this on the last match though.
Okay.
From night 1, it kind of fits in with this match too, and kind of the theme. I'm pretty sure Vince McMahon recently watched Black Panther before he was booking WrestleMania.
Yeah, he probably was.
Like, I'm pretty convinced of that, because if you look at it, I hate to say it, but I'm like, I got a great idea. I watched the movie, The Black Panther. Triple H being like, you mean like the movie about like the protest group in the 70s? No, I was watching it with the grandkids. It's about the guy in Africa, and he fights people. It's brand new. And doing this whole thing and be like, we're going to get the actors from the movie to be in their corners. Vince, we need to talk about something here. We got to tell you this. It's like, we're going to repackage Apollo Crews. He's from Wakanda. You can't do that, Vince. It's owned by Disney. What? We're not owned by Disney yet? Okay. Fine. He's from, looks at a map, Nigeria. Make him from Nigeria. And he's Wakandan forever. Like, no, you can't do this. Vince. Fine, we'll put the belt on him. Everybody will love it. That'll be a Nigerian drum fight, and they'll beat each other with kendo sticks. So it's going to be every other street fight we do. Yes, but there'll be drums at ringside. It's brilliant. You should watch Black Panther.
You just know. First of all, that's an awesome VKM riff. That was star quality right there. You just know that when they told him that Wakanda was owned by Disney, that his next question was, well, what's the equivalent fictional African nation that is owned by Peacock? Is there one? So Vince had to have, he had to have asked that question before settling on the real country of Nigeria. And I mean, look, I had Apollo Crews on the Indies was something that I had heard about more than seen about as far as hearing how great he was. Supposedly, this is a riff on something that he was doing on the Indies previously, and probably in much better fashion than this watered down kind of version here, and having to do an insulting fake accent that just insults all Africans everywhere. But yeah, this match was and again, you know, you got almost, whatever, the previous night that they're pushing as the new giant. This guy, you know, they're pushing as the new giant, and so at least they're on different shows. So there's that, I guess. But both members of New Day going down to the new big giants from each show for whatever that's worth. So I don't know if that
WWE booking, rinse, repeat, just make worse.
Yeah. And this is the infinitely worse version of what they did previously the night before with HBK Diesel 2K21 in their match. But the next match here, perhaps I was overly generous. You may think I had it rated as high as Owens and Zayn. I had it at 3.25 or 3.5 stars. Rhea Ripley defeating Asuka for the championship, and I said going in, this match doesn't have the build that it deserves to have. But I knew it needed to be a star-making match for Rhea Ripley. I thought that it was. It's a thing where you knew she was going over, not least of which because she got her own theme song. But it's like, I have to say, though, my only criticism is any theme song that a non-musician like me could potentially sing and perform might be a little bit too simplistic for the big stage. But this is my brutality. Okay, I get it.
That's the only line.
It is. I mean, it's, you know.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're not getting paid by the different verse because you're only getting paid for those couple words there. But so again, I may have some questions about this.
I would have rather heard Asuka's theme song live. At least that has some words.
Yes, and her theme song live, you know, would have been performed with a certain flair to it. Much like any of the time that Nakamura's were. Hers would have been really pretty interesting. But again, the right person went over, and that's even though, unlike Sasha Banks, Asuka did not get to have a really vaunted kind of title reign here. But she did a tremendous job here in helping to elevate a new star. I'm a big Rhea Ripley mark. I think she's a big part of the future of this company. So much like what they did with SmackDown, much like what they did the previous week at the NXT TakeOver show with elevating Rachel Gonzalez. And, of course, the three of them coming together for their curtain call on NXT this past Tuesday, the first night on Tuesday. I thought that was a great moment, having the three of them there together, because it is important to establish. You have the generation of the horsewomen, and you have also Asuka kind of fitting into that group there. But I think you have the breakthrough now with these three women coming up. And to a certain extent, I don't know where Io Shirai fits into that. She's somebody that had been established in the time in between the horsewomen and now. But to have three new big-time women coming along at a time like this, I thought worked great. And again, the match was not as good as the women's match the night before, not least of which because it didn't carry nearly the emotion that it did. The Bianca Belair-Sasha Banks match, I mean, that was probably at least about 80 to 90% of like Rock Hogan as far as emotion went. There was a lot of emotion in that match. This one didn't have as much. But as far as two hosses beating the crap out of each other, laying it in, and having an excellent match, I was down for it, buddy. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'd put it right up there, with Owens and Zayn. Also, it was a total different story, but an equally as entertaining story. The right person went over. I kind of feel for Asuka though, because she's been in a situation where, like, I think she's also 0-3 at WrestleMania. Now that I think about it, she went from this undefeated streak to she lost to Charlotte Flair. I'm pretty sure she lost the women's tag team titles last year to Alexis Bliss and Nikki Cross, and she lost this year. So she was this undefeated badass at NXT, and now she can't win on the big stage.
But you know what, though?
Her and Sasha Banks should face off next year. Someone, though, has got to go.
Well, exactly. But here's the thing, though. I mean,
I'm sorry.
and I'm big fans of both Sasha and Asuka. I say this as sort of a consolation to seeing both of them lose. You would never believe if somebody didn't put the stat in front of you, you would never believe that neither one of them had won at WrestleMania. They are as close to bulletproof as there is. Either one of them can take a loss like this, bounce back, and it does not affect their legend any. So I hear you on that, but I don't think people necessarily think of Asuka as being a loser because it is. Honestly, I think people looked at what was.
No, I don't think anybody thinks we're being a loser.
But it was
interesting. All people into that are nerd boys like us who find stats like that bad.
Sure, but and I think if anything, she suffered more for being champion through a very lackluster booked reign that she had there. She deserved better as champion, and I certainly hope that the next time that she's champion, that they have a better pool of competitors to work with her. And I wouldn't fart at seeing her get the title back from Rhea at some point here. Although, as we know, it'll probably end up being Charlotte. Vince being Vince, and they'll both get frozen out.
It's going to be Charlotte. It'll probably be Charlotte as soon as the next pay-per-view.
Yeah, and they'll both end up looking up at the lights to her, maybe both at the same time, right? Which takes us to the main event, which hang on
real quick before you get to the main event.
Yeah.
You just mentioned how great Asuka did the best that she could during for the past year, carrying, the Raw Women's Championship. And, quite frankly, other than that one, 3-week spell or whatever it was, she was champion for almost the entire year, the entire time.
Yeah.
And, I'm happy for her that she was given a special moment. She was given a main event match, not a main event, but she was given a title match at WrestleMania. And there is something to be said about, doing the honors with dignity and putting, I think as we've been fans long enough to know there's a lot that goes into also making somebody, putting over somebody.
Yeah.
And I think Asuka did a really excellent job of putting over and showing how, putting over Rhea Ripley as much as she could as this, boss that could stand and go toe-to-toe with her, which is a lot more, because I know you're going to gloss over this moment, but I'm not going to, which is a lot more that could be said for Bayley, who got absolutely screwed both nights, and it ended with, mind you, Bayley, who was the SmackDown Women's Champion for almost an entire year before losing to Sasha. Actually, it wasn't over an entire year before losing to Sasha, and then was also the Tag Team Champion, so she was doing both shows for a long time. What was her reward for, basically being one of the hardest workers during the entire Thunderdome and pandemic era, going back to the Performance Center before they got into the Thunderdome? What was her reward at WrestleMania? She got to walk out there and get slapped by the flippin' Bella Twins.
Yeah, and
give me a break.
Well, sure.
You got a great talent of, can you do something with her? Like, no. Or even give her, like, a ding-dong hello. Like, when they did the thing, when she walked out there and she interrupted Titus and Hogan, it was really funny to see Hogan get booed all night. By the way, I really enjoyed that. And I do believe my buddy Jurgen has a great idea. What creative idiot thought it was a good idea to dress Hulk Hogan up as a damn pirate? And I just texted back a picture of it. And when she came out there, I thought, okay, she's going to go out into the ring, whatever, and, even my buddies who were there, they thought maybe she was doing like a ding-dong hello, which would have been great, but it would have been something, and like Becky Lynch was going to come out and beat her up.
Yeah.
That would have been something.
Yes.
It would have been like a moment, people would have been like, okay, cool, Becky Lynch is back, she beat her up. Nope, it was just the stupid Bella Twins came out there and pushed her down the ramp at the end.
I agree.
Like, are you kidding me?
Well, that's the Hall of Fame Bella Twins to you, Jake Digman, but as far as they're in the Hall of Fame and Daniel Bryan's not, like I said, that tells you everything you need to know about the company. And I think it was night 2. I mean, having that moment where Hulk was saying something in his intro, and Titus was like, "You can't say that." Gee, the last time somebody said that to Hogan, it was when he was talking about people who looked like you, Titus. So there's that part of it.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I looked over at her and I go, I can't believe they went there.
I know.
Because what else are you implying with this?
Yes.
There's only one thing you could possibly be implying with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't say that. It's just like, what, awkward? This just became, it was already awkward enough as it is, and you said Hulk Hogan standing out there with the most black man, and I mean that as a compliment of the guy who does so much charity work for the WWE, who's involved in so much stuff to help not just the black community, but like inner city communities and really communities in general, special needs,
Right.
all sorts of stuff. And you send him out there with the guy who's a known racist who got fired and Chris Benoit for a while. And I mean, I believe somebody said, could the WWE be any more tone deaf?
Well,
like, you
exactly.
do this whole thing on night one where you have this magical moment, two black female wrestlers for the first time ever main eventing a WrestleMania for the Women's Championship, and then you do this stupid thing where you trot Hulk Hogan out there. Did anybody need to see Hulk? Did Hulk Hogan need to host this WrestleMania? He didn't sell a ticket. He didn't do a damn thing for the his stupid lines that he was given, which were clearly obvious. Nothing that man said is anything that Hulk Hogan would have ever said, ever.
I agree.
Except for brother, because he said brother 700 times, and even I was uncomfortable when he kept looking at Titus and calling him brother.
Well, yes,
man, I was like, I'm sorry, go away. You could have had your little moment with Hulk Hogan coming out, or the NWO fight. Yeah, that's it. You're here, too sweet, whatever. Let Titus host the whole show. If you're going to do this whole, we're moving forward, we're recognizing, the mistakes we've made in the past. Look what we did. We had the crowning, I think, was born minority people, a person of color is champion now than at any point in WWE history, or something to that effect. It's like we're recognizing and we're seeing things, but at the same time, we show how tone deaf and stupid we are by sending this guy back out there. And the crowd let him know. They were like, dude, we don't want to see him.
Right. And that's the thing where, I mean, them having Titus say, you can't say that, Hulk, that's, as they say in the world of writing, turning the subtext into text. We're all thinking that Hulk is out there, a guy who dropped N-bombs, and they paired him up with a black guy for whatever reason, because they thought it would be a great idea. I mean, as long as they're going to go there, why didn't they, night one, have Hulk Hogan talk about the main event of Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks by saying, I'm sure my daughter Brooke would probably like watching something like that.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
It's just the stuff that this company does. But again, this is the same company that also had Randy Orton go over the feed. So
well, yeah.
Obviously, they don't. They're Vince is like, hey, welcome back, audience. I'm going to shit on you now.
Exactly. And this is perhaps an awkward segue here, since we're talking about another black guy, but Big E. I'm going to use this as an example of pro wrestling, and one of the problems in the modern kind of a thing here in terms of timing is that Big E, had they a couple months ago gone in their direction and sort of heated him up, he could have been a guy to come into WrestleMania and potentially take the championship, but it didn't happen. They really had a couple ways that they could have gone. They would have had to have started several months ago if it was going to be Cesaro. But basically, they picked Edge, and I don't know if there was ever a thought of giving Edge the belt, but when he sort of started to, and again, I blame the direction more than anything else, with morphing him more towards being a heel. Daniel Bryan had been treated as a geek far too much recently here in terms of he's been very selfless as far as putting other guys over, but when you go to put him in the main event of WrestleMania, that would have been microwaving at its finest. So in the end, what you end up getting is Roman Reigns, the real feel-good moment at the end of WrestleMania, going over. Now, I did regard this by a slight margin as the best match of night two. This is where I disagree with you. I'll still give it 4 stars because I didn't like the finish. We'll see. By the time we're taping this, we still don't know, but there's a chance, at least based on some of the Twitter interactions here, they may go in the direction of Edge actually pinned Daniel Bryan. So maybe they go that it's a disputed finish because of the way that Roman had him laid out. So possible. They left the door open to a rematch where Adam Pearce could scrap iron Adam Pearce, 5-time NWA World Champion Adam Pearce could possibly dictate a rematch on that basis. I thought the match was really excellent. There were great spots. I know you had to be loving, as I did, the headbutting spot between Daniel Bryan and Edge when they both had Roman Reigns in a submission hold. And again, there was just a lot of things that they did really, really well. It seemed to have less of the one guy lays around while the other 2 guys do all the work, and then another guy comes in and they take turns laying down. It seemed to have less of that than usual. I thought it was a really, 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 really good match. But again, the finish of it just proved to me They didn't have anybody ready. Roman's been the champ since SummerSlam, and they didn't have anybody ready by WrestleMania to take the belt off of him.
And I don't know if they were going to take the belt off of him. That's the thing. And I see a lot of people out there clamoring for him to break Brock's record and for him to hold on to the belt till next year at WrestleMania. And I'm not against that idea. I was now, the finish to this was something that you had kind of alluded to. He pretty much buried both of them.
Yeah.
The concerto, and they're both taken out. Here's my issue why I didn't like this as much as the previous matches. And maybe this is just a thing. I've seen this before. It's a typical overbooked WWE cluster triple threat main event. That, you had the Jey Uso running in, keep getting involved, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what's this Jey Uso could keep running in and getting involved? What's to stop everybody from getting involved? Why don't you all go in there then? And, I mean, if it was to protect Roman, okay, he didn't really need protected coming into it, but I just don't, the entire thing of the end of it with, I don't know, it just seemed a little off to me when I was watching it. There was just something about it that I was like, okay, it's going to be, and you said, like, you didn't think they did the typical wait around for the next spot. I pretty much watched it, thought that all they were doing was
Really?
setting up for the next spot to take place. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
just like, it's just, again, it's each person's preference.
Yeah, your mileage may vary.
But it's like, the ending to it was like, okay, again, it goes back to my thing with the Fiend match and the women's tag team title match. We just wasted our time. We had this whole Edge hasn't been here for 10 years, whatever he's been out for. It was 10 years to the day that he gave up the world championship.
Yeah.
It's like, really? You couldn't have had Edge pin Daniel Bryan, and then there's your out.
Yeah.
And with that happy feel good, like, okay, 10 years, 10 years to the day. This just shows that if you keep believing in yourself and believing in anything can happen, blah, 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 whatever. It's a happy, sure, you're supposed to be a heel, but no one would have remembered that. It would have been a happy, feel good moment to end it. Instead, it just, WrestleMania ended flatter than a pancake. Roman pins them and goes, that's it, I win. The end. Like, okay, thanks for coming, bye.
Well,
if there was ever a tale of two polar opposites, it's night one versus night two.
Yeah.
Night one send the crowd home happy. Night two, and it's interesting that the show itself was bookended by the men's heel world champion on one show going over and the men's heel world champion on the other show going over, when as a point in time that never would have taken place at a WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, we went through the first 15 WrestleManias without one heel world champion winning. We had two of them in one night. You're right about this. And it's a thing where, at the end of the day, it's Roman going over just like he has every time he's been in a main event since winning the title back this was the 2020 version of Tuesday in Texas when they did a pay-per-view the week after SummerSlam. But as far as it goes here,
I forgot they did that.
Yeah.
I always thought he won the belt at SummerSlam. I completely forgot that he won the belt like the next week.
Yeah, it was a mystery kind of a thing of him running. It was the SummerSlam you'll never see coming. Okay, yeah, I mean, point well taken. We didn't. I mean, the fact that they gave him the Benoit treatment the early part of the year more or less erased him from history. Hey, remember that great tag team of Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, The Shield?
No. Now it's just, hey, remember that great tag team of Seth Rollins?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's a deal in terms of this thing. So I'm critical in terms of that they should have had somebody built up by WrestleMania to take the title off of him. And, God help us all if they try and go another year with him on top, because it will be diminishing returns in terms of the ratings and any of the things they think have benefited from him being on top. But when I look at this whole situation here, him winning, him going over, again, there is sort of a dearth of guys out there who maybe could be built up to even take him on. Again, Big E is a guy who could be, if they transition him out of the Intercontinental thing into something else. Kevin Owens, they basically beat to death in a feud with him. At a certain point, they'll do a draft and or raid NXT again to get more guys to potentially ruin at the hands of their booking / Roman Reigns. But it's a thing where I didn't like the outcome of it. Daniel Bryan, I think there could have been some juice in having him go for it with another run on top, but they didn't seem inclined to want to do that necessarily. I will tell you this. The next time, because I didn't believe Roman was going over, because, again, even at this late point in time, I still sometimes give them too much credit. I didn't think he'd be going over because I thought they would realize how flat it would be. Silly me. But this is a thing here where when they're telling you what's going to happen, listen to them. Roman Reigns complaining ahead of time in a promo that now that it's a three-way match, I could lose the belt without even getting pinned, which I thought is what was going to happen. Anytime they talk about a finish, that's never the finish you get. I should have known he was going over the minute he said that, Jake.
Yeah. Usually, even when it's stuff that you know would make the most sense,
yeah.
If they put on TV, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that they do the usually that happens because somebody got mad backstage.
Generally, yeah.
There's a lot of the tropes that still exist. If somebody goes over on the go home show, they're pretty much, you can almost safely bet that they're going to lose at the pay-per-view.
Yes. Yes.
Unless it's certain people like Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's the rules don't really apply to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's reached a point now where I was thinking about this because you mentioned the idea of there's really nobody on SmackDown that they can drag. They have a clause in there that says, okay, we can have a reason for Edge to challenge at the next show for the title, because he can, they can say, I did see the Twitter thing you're referencing, and Charles Robinson was saying, hey, I counted all four shoulders were on the mat. Adam Pearce was like, see me in my office on Friday. It's like, okay, there's a thing, you can set that up there and fine, they do that match, but once Roman goes over there, because I think we can all safely assume he's going to win that match too.
Right.
I think then is when we got to change things up, and they got to do a draft and switch some things around and switch some bodies, or do some stuff. Or here's another interesting one too: if you're going to heat them up, and we've seen the WWE do this in the past when actually it was Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, when he first debuted, he challenged for the championship at the pay-per-view after WrestleMania. What if they do with Cesaro? If you're going to go with them, go with it. See how he does it. See how the crowd. Well, they don't have a crowd now.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. How are they going to explain this one? Welcome back, fans. And they're gone.
Well, exactly. Yeah. They've been like, now we're back to having fans. Tune in tomorrow night on Raw when we don't have fans. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward. But, in looking at this, it's a thing, too, where you can, by having Roman so far above everybody else, and like I said, that has happened mostly out of their failure to elevate anybody else. I mean, Big E, they've elevated in recent months, although he looks like a geek losing the way that he did the Intercontinental title here. But it's one of these things where whoever beats Roman, like, if it's Cesaro, and, I'm almost laughing thinking about that, as though they would ever put Cesaro over Roman Reigns. They still have a lot of building to do before that can happen, because the thing of it is, when you have somebody set so far above everybody else, you diminish them greatly when they lose. Like, Roman would not lose as much if he lost the title to somebody built up as a near equal. If Roman loses the title to somebody still perceived as well down the chain, then that's not going to work as well. I always thought, and this is a thing where, and I'm always hoping that we get Bret Hart back on the show, because any of the times I've had him on previously, I've always forgot to ask him this point. My theory is, and this is very counterintuitive to history, when he lost to Owen at WrestleMania 10, the fact that he got the belt at the end of the night, it didn't make up for all of the diminishing that was done to him in the loss. Reason being, I thought they needed to build Owen going into WrestleMania, instead of being portrayed as he's clearly inferior. He goes in and he beats Bret. And it's like, Bret's the world champion, but he lost to a guy portrayed as a geek at the beginning of the night. If you elevate guys before they get a breakthrough, that's the way to do it. And they've got work to do to elevate anybody to be on the level to take the title from Roman Reigns without diminishing Roman Reigns and undoing a lot of what they've done to build him up over the last 9 months.
I hate to say this, but unfortunately, I think it's time, you brought in the draft, that they need to change, to use a good old VKM statement expression, time to shake things up again, pal, because there's no real aforementioned get the intrigue of Cesaro versus Roman Reigns, but there's no one that's going to believe Cesaro can win.
Right.
And Cesaro probably shouldn't win, with the way he's been built up. Personally, a couple names to throw in there that I think could make for an interesting foils to Roman Reigns, if we're going to do like the draft idea, and you mentioned either from Raw or plucked from NXT. I'll go with the one that plucked from NXT that has been there for a little while, that is currently free and clear, has a refreshed outlet, that being one Finn Balor.
Yeah.
Coming into as the Prince, coming into SmackDown as a potential challenger. He's got a fresh face, new gimmick, spent a lot of time away, and it's very easy. I mean, I don't even know if he was a heel down at NXT, to be honest. I think he was a heel for like a couple weeks, and he went right back to being a babyface.
Right.
And then the other one's another guy we had mentioned earlier that had been kind of pigeonholed and missed WrestleMania and could be considered a legitimate threat to Roman, size-wise at least. That being one Keith Lee.
Yes.
As someone could come in and, people would believably think, okay, this guy is, he's the size that he could take him down. Finn Balor's not on the same size as Roman, but I think he has that credibility that the fans would believe it if he did it.
Yeah.
And the fact that he is a former Universal Champion and all that stuff, and him coming in and him being gone for so long, I think it'd be one of those like, okay, hey, this is fresh and new again.
I agree, and either one of those would be really excellent. Again, in my heart of hearts, I want to see it be Cesaro at this point, and I think, again, they still have some work to do to rehabilitate him. He needs some more wins on the way up the ladder, but this could be a thing where maybe by the time of SummerSlam, that could be something people are clamoring for, and it could be really interesting. And then to be able to play off of, and here's the thing, too, is that Heyman is so good at getting over so many different nuances of stuff. The whole thing of Cesaro being in the background as a Paul Heyman guy the whole time that he was with Heyman, and all Heyman was ever out there doing was promoting Brock Lesnar, which Heyman has acknowledged in shoot interviews, and that it did a disservice to Cesaro. You can basically have Cesaro come back at him all these years later. Yeah, I was a Paul Heyman guy, and what did it get me at the time? That set the stage for the way I was treated all these years subsequently. There's so much to be mined there in terms of that could really, really go well. So the storytelling could be just really, really magnificent if they let it be.
And on the same topic, if we're talking about changing things up again, too, and, different opportunities, now that this has happened on SmackDown, it's been a while since Daniel Bryan was on Raw. And the rumor has it that Daniel Bryan is looking to hang up his boots sooner than later.
Yeah.
And what better way to go out than basically have Bobby Lashley break his neck in the Hurt Lock?
Yeah.
Because the whole idea is that, he couldn't wrestle because of his concussion issues, and there's some, or you can even do the same thing with Edge if you want to, because his was neck related. So even if you want to insert, I just think Daniel Bryan works in this because he hasn't been on Raw since he's come back. So a fresh take to have him on Monday Night Raw, and then build him up and get that shot, and then have Lashley take and have him put his career on the line. He's saying I'm done. If I don't win the championship, I couldn't beat Roman. I couldn't do this. If I can't beat you, I'm done. And then Bobby Lashley legitimately, just not legitimately, but puts him in the Hurt Lock, and he just they like to put in sound effects. Put in a cracking sound effect.
Right.
and all the crack, and all of a sudden, like Lashley just goes and like the ref springs to the belly, just drops him, and he gets carted off and stretcher and do the whole thing, put the neck brace on him and cart him off, and he's gone.
Well, the thing
the
thing with Edge is, I know he legitimately wants to keep going. That is a shoot how badly he missed this.
That was my Bryan scenario. Edge is a completely different one.
Okay.
And I put the career on the line because whatever, but at the same time, you talk about taking time off. Take some time off. The Daniel Bryan scenario. You can even do the same thing with Edge. Get him in there and have him challenge. He wants, because he's a main event guy. Use him as main event guy. Have him challenge Lashley, and Lashley, targets his hurt neck, and it makes sense storyline wise.
Well, and how about this? You do that match, and then sometime after Lashley has lost the title to somebody else and can take that loss without losing the title he's already lost, then Edge comes back to get his revenge. That's the good time for it.
Yeah.
Is that you don't have to put the title on Edge at the end of this thing. You could have Lashley drop it to somebody else first. So there's a lot of ways that you can go. In all of this, I will leave you with this, Jake. A laugh from this week in wrestling. Something that I stole off of Twitter today. That somebody making the point here of how actually, you know what? I think this might have been, was this future Dave Meltzer? I forget who it was on Twitter. Somebody making the joke that the guy who most wished that he was in Jacksonville this past Wednesday night was Mauro Ranallo, so he could so that he could shout out the following: "Anthony, wake me up before you a go-go."
Oh, wow. Well, a lot of people might end up in Jacksonville pretty soon.
Well, that's true. That's true. It's Samoa Joe. So it's,
I don't know about that one. I don't know if Joe's going to end up in Jacksonville or if Joe's going to end up back in wherever they film Impact at. But then it doesn't matter because then they both go on both shows now.
it's going to be.
I don't know,
Oh my God! What are the Colonics doing in the Impact Zone?
if someone's smart, they will put them back together.
Yeah, they will.
Obviously, fans want to see them. So if they're smart about it, and I think, and again, Impact has women's tag team champions, I think.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I can't find Impact. It's like impossible to watch. So I watch Impact on their YouTube clips, and that's only like, wrestling with no crowd was horrible before, but it's just cringeworthy. But it's like not usually good. It's like I'll watch a couple of different things off of there, but I don't go out of my way to watch it.
Exactly.
Because that's one of the ones where really the lack of a crowd has an effect on it. But
right.
I would watch a YouTube clip of the Iconics, made their debut over there, and it would make sense for them to bring them in. I mean, I feel bad for them. I hope they could do better things. Everyone's like, all the releases. AEW, I'm like, AEW has like 80 people. I don't know what to do with any of them. I don't know how good it is to bring in more.
They do. But
other than Samoa Joe, there was nobody on that list that I went, oh, I can't wait to see, Mojo Rawley, not interested. Mickie James, I want to see her in the NWA. Other than that, I don't remember who all was on the list. No, Bo Dallas, I think they just remembered he worked there.
Right. The one thing here, since they seem to love the 80s NWA booking, you already got Sean Spears there. Perhaps with Tully as the manager, Peyton Royce as his perfect 10 in his corner also? That's a thought.
Oh, that's actually not a bad idea. That is his real life wife, right?
That is. This wasn't a random thought, Jake Digman. That's why I mentioned her.
I couldn't remember who it was. That's not a bad idea at all. That would go over very, 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 very well.
It would.
If I have to give her what her real name is.
It would.
That instead. That and, I guess Chelsea Green got let go, and I was like, I didn't even know she's.
Well, she'll be in the Impact Zone with her old man. I mean, some of these ones you can probably figure where they're heading.
Welcome back, Laurel Van Ness.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a shame that every WrestleMania week seems to have to culminate with this, waving goodbye to the dearly departed, who hopefully will be making more money on the other side as the world returns to normal, but we shall see. But the one thing in the grim times of the pandemic, before and beyond, the one constant in this world is that whether it's pro wrestling, MMA, or anything else we've talked politics on this show, we've talked any number of things, it's always a great conversation with my man, Jake Digman, the world's finest MMA ring announcer and great FDH Lounge dignitary. Jake Digman, thank you so much for your time yet again, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me, my friend. I thoroughly enjoy doing this, and anytime you'll have me, I'm glad to be here.
I love doing it, pal. We'll do it again sometime soon. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this mini episode of the FDH Lounge.